Welcome to Love and Friendship. We're going to talk about tonight Judaism and what it can do for you. And I'll have a guest who is a very devout Jewish Messianist, and he'll tell you about it. He's going to be coming in, Joseph Agg. And we're going to be reading excerpts from two great books on world religions. One is by Houston Smith. I've read this copy so much, look. And the other is by Philip Novak. And I've read this equally much. It's Breaking Apart. Maybe I could be proud of this. This is called The World's Wisdom by Philip Novak, and it's excerpts from each of the great religious traditions. And this evening we're going to be focusing on the Jewish tradition. And my guest, Joseph Agg, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Is how new are you as a devout Jew or devout Messianist?
I've been back in the Messianic movement for the last 2 or 3 years of my life.
So it's somewhat new.
Somewhat new, yeah. So I've been delving in a lot more in the last couple of years.
And you can share, you did last week, but what are some of the basic practices and ideas in this Messianism? It's called Messianism, is that right?
Yeah, Messianism. Yeah.
Wow.
Messianic Judaism.
Oh, Messianic Judaism.
Messianic Judaism.
Even though there's, because the word Messianic includes Yeshua, Jesus,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Oh, but that's not in the title anymore. It used to be called Jews for Jesus, right?
Yeah. That is like one of the biggest outreach groups, or one of the biggest groups that were giving out the message of the Messiah Yeshua.
Oh, but they changed their name.
I'm not. There's also another one called Chosen People Ministries.
Wow.
Chosen People in Brooklyn, which is another huge one.
And you told us last week that it was on the top floor of a Pentecostal.
Yep. It was the building for the Pentecostal church that housed the church, and it was the church that we as a community built. On the second floor, they rented out the Messianic show, the Messianic.
And somehow that appealed to you more.
It did.
Because?
It seemed to be a lot more practical, a little less on the tenets of faith, but more on the practice.
Oh, like keeping Sabbath and...
Like keeping Sabbath, like the feasts.
Yes.
The 7 feasts, the main feasts at least, Passover, Yom Kippur, just all of these components seem to be of practice in your daily life rather than an idea, rather than a belief about an idea.
So you don't put on tefillin, do you?
I don't do that because we are a little bit different in which our interpretation, it's almost like the Karaites in which they see Torah only. They look at Torah only. It's not so much. Now we can study the rabbis, and we do study the rabbis.
Oh, but in the Torah, I think in the Torah though it says bind these commandments close to your heart.
Yeah.
And so tefillin was these leather straps, and in them was the command to bind these commands.
The Shema,
close to your heart.
Put it on your mind, and
yes. Oh,
and
very beautiful.
Yep, it is. It is a beautiful practice, and I have Hasidic friends that do practice this, who also believe in Yeshua. So the thing is that there is a varied backgrounds within the Messianic movement. Some come from a more orthodox, and some come from a more maybe conservative or different backgrounds, and some are physically, ethnically Jewish, and some are more of religiously Jewish.
Yes, you're more religiously Jewish.
More religiously,
right?
Yeah.
But when you say you believe in Yeshua, Jesus, it means...
It means that we believe, and I believe, that He is the Messiah who was to release us from the powers of death and release us from the powers of the dark forces, and to restore the earth to the glory which God had originally intended it via his death, via his
taking
vicarious
his
death.
time, isn't he?
Hmm?
He's taking his time.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes, but I gotta keep believing because that's the ultimate hope we have.
And why would, and because many Jews don't believe that.
Mm.
There's a Jewish magazine called Tikkun, which is a Kabbalistic phrase, and it means to mend, repair, and heal the world.
That's right.
But not one person doing it. All of us.
Yeah.
Which makes more sense to me. Seems like too big a job for one person.
That makes sense. And I was listening. I'm glad you said that because I was listening to a rabbi today. He's a pretty famous one, Rabbi Alon Inaba, and you can see him on YouTube. And he is not Messianic, but he was a pretty wild guy at one time. He lived in Tel Aviv for most of his life, and he was kind of like very secular. But then he died, had a near-death experience. I was just listening to it today, and he said that in the afterlife, what he experienced is that everything that he did, whether good or bad, every mitzvot he did affected everybody. Every negative thing that he did affected everybody. It was like the fabric of space-time.
Yeah, that's very beautiful.
Yeah. You know?
I mean, some scientists have said the fluttering of a moth in Japan can set off climate patterns.
The butterfly effect.
Yes, or a butterfly in the States.
That's it.
So we're all part of this web.
Yep. Whether we like it or not.
So what is it that we would say or you would say, I mean, I love Yeshua Jesus too as a Jewish rabbi, and I don't mind believing in resurrection. That sounds nice.
Yeah.
I think which in some ways Christians would say, we're all the body of Christ, right? So we all have to do that.
Yeah.
And Christ is not his name. Yeshua, Christ is the word for Messiah.
That's right. Yeah.
So he's just Yeshua ben Yosef.
Yeah. It's not the son of Mary and Joseph Christ. It's like that. That's not as my rabbi would say. He's not the son of Mary and Joseph Christ.
No.
That's a title.
So, I mean, why not? I mean, all of us, from what you're saying, since all of our actions influence all of us, are little messiahlets.
Yeah, we're supposed to be. We're made in the image. Supposed to be made in the image of God, as Adam was.
Yes.
As Adam and Eve were.
So, what does it mean to have one person be called that rather than all of us? Although I believe in Christian thinking, where, as I said before, we're all part of the body of the Messiah. Just as you were saying, all of our actions. So there are many Jews that don't want to believe that it's just Yeshua, Jesus.
I see.
They want to believe it's all of us. Because they don't want, and Jews often want, this is not my belief, but they want a gap between human and divine. And that, I don't know if that's a good idea. I think we're all divine.
I believe that Yeshua was the first fruit of that divinity within. And that because he is divinity, and that's how I see it, he's the manifestation of Hashem. And being the perfect model for us.
Really?
That's how I believe it.
He doesn't make mistakes like the rest of us?
It's hard to believe, but I had to put my faith and my trust in that.
Because he says so many, see, I'm very Jewish, especially after living in Israel for 3 years. And Israel, means to wrestle with God.
Yeah.
And you can win. Jacob wrestled with the messenger, you know this story better than I, wrestled with the messenger from God and won.
Yeah, it's Deuteronomy 32, I believe.
Wow, I was going to see, look, we have an impressive guest. I was so impressed. It was just on the way to see his brother who he had stolen the birthright
Esau,
from.
yeah.
And it says actually when he wrestles with this messenger, some translations are angel, the messenger and he look, I think it's something like this, look into each other's eyes and see the divinity in them. And so I would like to think we have it all. And no, I would like, this is me now, you would not agree. I mean, I like a growing God. I mean, look at the world. I mean, if we don't have if we want to blame all the problems on humanity, that's not fair. God help create, or we even the word God get in the way. Huge natural powers, big banging, big blasphemy,
Right.
and from the black hole that they came from.
Yeah.
I mean, that's divine energy.
Yeah. Powerful.
Yes, but that's violent too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Galaxies swallow galaxies.
Yeah.
I can see them meeting each other, and if you were a galaxy, I'd say, "Hey, Joe, have you eaten any galaxies for lunch lately?" Say, "Wow, I got this great, I got my eye in this Milky Way. Oh, is that yummy?"
But imagine how big he must be if he created the universe that could swallow suns, right? Stars blow up and swallow suns.
Yeah.
Think of how big the divine is.
Well, I think the divine is that and more. I mean, I think everything, one Jewish philosopher, Spinoza, defined God as nature naturing itself. It's my father's favorite philosopher. So you don't need just one intelligence and control, which Jews always like to wrestle. If they're told what to do, they'll be like Abraham and say, "Now you're not going to destroy Sodom, are you? There's 50 just people there. You're a just God, aren't you?"
Yeah, our father Abraham knew that he wasn't. I mean, even Moses pleading with Hashem over, like, come on, don't destroy all these people, because then now your reputation's on the line. Right.
So the God of the Hebrew Bible learns. He's learning as he goes along.
He's a very I see character of mercy. I see he has this plan, but he allows people to get into these hijinks, and allows us to learn.
But he does it too. He's wanted to destroy all the Jewish people.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think about that and I go, there are times when I look in the scriptures and look at life.
Yes.
And I say, what are you doing?
Right. But if you have a growing God, which is how it's certainly, at least to me, clear. If you don't have someone tell you, okay, God is all good, and you just look at the Hebrew Bible.
Right.
It's a God that's growing.
And I think
I'm sorry I flooded the world. I know.
You repented.
I'm sorry. I'm going to put a rainbow in the sky to remind myself. Do not flood the world.
That's an interesting point of view, but it's just I can't fathom, and I think that's why we have the scriptures, because we can't fathom, we can't imagine who the Creator is. Otherwise, I don't think. I mean, unless we look at nature, right? Like you mentioned Spinoza about nature. He was 17th century philosopher, right?
That's a good question. Yes, 17th century.
Around there. And so I think our people at that time were just starting to realize that there's more to the relationship with God than just the scriptures that he's revealed. So people were very hard-lined until then. And I mean, the way that I look at it is he is beyond human capacity, but at the same time, he is very human in his way, because if he created us, he has to have human qualities. If he created humans, he has to have emotions. He has to have.
Also, he walks in the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
He says, "Who told you you were naked?"
Yeah.
He's pretty mad and angry.
Yeah.
So no, it's a growing relationship, like with parents, with fathers.
Yeah.
And the Hebrew Bible doesn't mess around. One philosopher, Nietzsche, said, if you want to see how people ought to behave, you can read the New Testament.
Mhm.
If you want to discover how they really behave, read the Hebrew
Right.
Bible.
That makes sense.
So
See
I
the
have,
bondness.
I have a growing God that fortunately makes mistakes. You know Job,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
God is getting Job punished just to prove that Job loves him.
He scorned him, man. He gave it to him in the end.
Yes, but in the end, God apologizes. He says, you know, you're right,
Yeah.
and I would punish your friends who were telling me you were
Right.
wrong, but they're your friends, so I'll let them
Right.
be. But Job won that wrestling match also.
Mm-hmm.
So, and did you know that in the Hebrew Bible, after Job, for the whole 1/3 of the end of the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
God doesn't say one word.
Mm-hmm. It's a whole debate up until like the last chapters, right?
No, up till Job, which is just
Yeah.
2/3 in the Hebrew Bible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
After, I mean, God behaved so badly, but he saw the error of his ways. But the Jews never wanted to speak to him again. Even Jesus, very, very seldom
Mm-hmm.
spoke with God. Very seldom. And their conversation was, you know, and as a good Jew, Jesus wanted to say, hey, I want this cup to pass me by.
Mm.
And he didn't win that wrestling match, alas. So if we have a growing God, everything makes way more sense. And then God really needs us. When we say Baruch Hashem, you know, just like we need praise. Go, Joe, go. You can get that job. Yes, every day, go. And we keep praising God because God needs to be boosted up. I mean, imagine if you made this world, what would you think of yourself?
Say it again.
If you made this world,
If I made this world,
what would you think of yourself?
what would I think of me? That's see, yeah, you got to look in the mirror sometimes. I would say an ambitious person who has a lot of drive, a lot of energy, but has some flaws.
Who?
Myself.
God? Oh, you.
Myself.
And God.
So if I created the world and I was looking at myself,
Yes.
I would say destined to be perfected, but not perfect.
Yes, and we have the beautiful, as I said. God says, I am not going to flood the world again. I'm sorry I did it.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't quite say I'm sorry, but he says, I'm not going to do it again.
What about the Isaiah passage which said, I create evil? And I've always been puzzled about that one. Like, how does God create evil?
Well, we have time for this. This is the best explanation of good and evil I've ever heard, by Guy Merchant, who wrote The 7 Mysteries of Life. He says, when we were young, you and I, and you captured me in the war. We were in neighboring villages, Somerville and Cambridge, and we fought wars all the time over territory. And you're a strong guy and smart, so you win, and you beat me in my clan. And usually you eat, people aren't foolish. You beat me, and you can have me for lunch. However, you come up with this amazing idea. And that's the way people did these things. That was good. Just like we eat chicken, you eat people. And then you had this amazing moral insight. You said to the Somerville folks, we don't have to eat the Cambridgians. We can make them slaves. They'll do all kinds of things for us. And they said, no, we eat them. And you won on the force of your personality. You said, try it.
Yeah.
You'll see you like it.
Right.
And so slavery then was a moral advance over eating me.
From straight up murder, from just murdering somebody and cannibalism.
Yes.
Yeah.
So good and evil is also growing. And eventually we have discovered, not easily, that slavery, which once was a moral advance, is now a horror.
Right.
It's happening all over the world still. Sexual slaves, among others.
Yeah, yeah.
So, to say that God creates evil is, since God is creating everything. And that's important, and there's evil too, that's divine. And we have to help God grow. Baruch Hashem. Praise the Lord. Come on, just like Abraham. Abraham says, you're not going to destroy Sodom. You're a good God. You are a good God. You wouldn't kill the innocent.
He's cheerleading them.
You wouldn't kill the innocent with the wicked. No. If we find 50 just people, you're not going to.
Right. We know what kind of God you are.
Yes, and he convinces God to. Oh, it gets down to 10. It doesn't. It's a great attempt, but it's too bad he didn't keep going, because God still destroys Sodom. But it was an idea of arguing with God to get God more just, which Moses did, as you mentioned before the show. When God says, I'm going to destroy the Israelites, they're just complaining all the time. Fetch, fetch, fetch.
Yeah, yeah.
And Moses says, as you know, well, you can't do that, God. What will the Egyptians say? They'll say you're a pretty pathetic God.
Right.
Rescue these people out of Egypt.
Just to kill them.
Just to kill them. And God says, yeah, I guess I won't kill them.
And he relented.
And
He said, nah, you know.
So, I mean, he still was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
With the golden calf, you know what happened? I guess you do, yes.
Yep, they he made them drink it.
Yes.
Aaron, I think it was Aaron.
And Moses.
Yeah, Moses made Aaron to drink it, and everybody
No,
else.
Aaron didn't drink it,
No.
but Aaron helped
Right.
pour it down. Melted golden calf. If you think you had trouble with some of your eating habits.
Yeah, I wonder how that tasted.
Melted, what, enough to kill you.
Yeah.
So our God, our Hebrew God, is growing, learning. It's very clear, unless people want to play all kinds of distorted games. It's really clear God is learning. And sometimes, I had to do this with my mother, the Hebrews said in the Bible, after Job, we're not going to talk to you anymore, God. That was just brutal what you did for Job. Just to see if somebody loved you. What is wrong with you? You've been through stuff like this yourself. And so, for hundreds of years, there was, at least in the Bible, no communication from God. We didn't want to hear that. It's enough already. And maybe, I did this with my mother, God will come back and behave better.
Do you see maybe a correlation between the humanity of Yeshua and, because in Christianity you would say, in theological terms, the hypostatic union, where God and the Son, God the Father and the Son are one, yet still distinct. Now, the whole wrestling with Jacob thing, right? He sees the angel, like he sees God face to face and yet doesn't die.
Yeah.
So, but nobody has seen God. Moses saw only his form, but yet he didn't see God. So it's like, could it be possible that that was a form of a Yeshua, because nobody could see God, but that form of Yeshua, even before he was born into this world, and that humanity, that the learning God, as you say,
That growing God.
that growing God, came in the fullness of his Son, because he said, when do I come back? I don't know. Only the Father knows. So we have a divinity in human form, yet he still chose to limit himself, as the book of Hebrews says. He chose to limit himself. So in many places, as infinite as he is, like in Kabbalah, the Ein Sof, right?
Ein Sof means without end.
Without end, right?
They wanted a new word for God, since the word God was too much connected with some commander telling us what to do. And so they chose the Kabbalists, who preceded the Hasidic community. Kabbalists said, we've got a new word for God, Ein Sof.
Without end.
without end, and one rabbi said 2 words too many.
It's like words really can't really describe something infinite. So it's like, how do you describe something infinite? And that's why I'm kind of getting where you're coming from. That's an interesting thought. Like, I actually never really thought about that. But the humble side of God in that sense.
In what sense?
In the sense of being someone who, okay, I destroyed the earth once, I will never do it again.
Yes.
That shows his humility. That shows what kind of, as opposed to, like, in this book, when I was reading this book, it was talking about the other.
This is Houston Smith.
This is
Religions
yes.
of the World.
Yeah, Houston Smith, Religions of the World, right?
Or Religions for the World, I forget what the exact.
World's Religions.
World's Religions.
The World's Religions. So it was talking about, in comparison, I'll have to find the page, but in comparison to, like, the Greek gods, they would always be jealous, and they would always be killing each other and sending each other to Hades and all this type of the Sumerian gods, who were always like swallowing each other up. The Egyptian gods were mad at each other all the time. But you see this humble harmony.
You're very nice.
Right?
You are so nice.